Between the end of the last movie and this movie, I've gone ahead and scrubbed the timeline and allowed the program to go ahead and do its plotting of the motion tracking points, and then fine-tune that a little bit. We can see I still have a little bit of wander over here on this first point, and I may want to go ahead and fix that. So like right here, I see it drifting up and down a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and zoom into this point here. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and reset it up just a little bit higher and scrub that just a little bit more. We'll get a little motion, and we could sit here and finesse this all day, but this is close enough. The other thing that I have done is shortened up the duration of the amount of time that will be rendered out of here to 126 frames. So let me go ahead and back out, scrolling with my mouse wheel just a little bit. We'll go all the way back to the beginning, and I'll go ahead and click play so we can see this in action a little bit. We see a little bobble right there, and that makes me want to fix that. Right there. So it's this constant process of finessing, and you'll want to spend all your time getting this right before we start doing anything else to the scene, for the simple reason that you don't want to have to fix it after you're actually connecting other animated objects to it. So okay, we've made a fine tune there. Looking for any rapid motions on the trackers. Not seeing it. There's a little bit of floating going on, but that will be acceptable right here. Okay, we'll come all the way back to the beginning. The next thing is to bring something into our scene to go ahead and track. So what I will do is open up our library, and I believe there is a rocket ship or something over here in the props area. Come to that, alien ship. I'll double click. Now this comes into our scene here. Let me close up our library window. A couple considerations. This is kind of a mountain range back here. If I want the rocket ship to be sitting behind the mountains a little bit like it's a giant rocket ship, then I can't just drop it in here. Something else I'll need to do is the trackers will track the center of the layer, not the objects. So if I want anything to go on with this object, I want to put the center of the layer right down below it. So I'm going to come to the origin tool, simply click right at the base. Now, if I want this behind the mountains, that lets me know that I'm going to have to do some masking. So maybe this was a futile little exercise right there, because to mask, we have to create a group. So I'll do that real quickly. And I'll just call this whole thing Rocket Group. Click OK. I'm going to drag our spaceship in here. And I want to also, at this point, with the spaceship selected, shrink this down a little bit. It's obviously a little too large here, and I want it to be in the distance, especially when we go ahead and engage one of these features that we can use with motion tracking. I'll get it up here a little bit. Actually, no, let me go ahead and spin this a little bit so it's perpendicular to the ground. The next thing I'll do is select the rocket group and create a new vector layer. This is going to be my mask layer. So I will drag it below the rocket ship. Actually, I need to make sure the rocket ship's in the group. The mask is below the ship. I'm going to select this. I'll use my add point tool, and I'm simply going to kind of follow here, click and drag the mountain range a little bit, and then tuck my rocket back behind it. So this has been drawn. There it is. Come to the top level here, rocket group. We do have an entire section on this if I'm going a little bit quickly for you, so you can learn how to do this better. We'll choose hide all. Okay. I'm going to come down to the mask itself. I don't want to see the mask, so I'm going to double click on that, open up masking, and I'll say clear the mask and add this layer invisibly to it. I'll select that and choose OK. Now we don't see any difference here until I click off the mask, at which point in time, there's our ship. So I'm going to grab the ship layer and pull this down just a little bit, and we see it disappearing behind the mask. Let's do a quick render right here real quickly. And this rocket ship has got a very hard edge. What I want to do is actually kind of blur this up to get it to match the video a little bit before we get into the track side of it. So I'll expand the spaceship here. We've got door and ship, a switch layer here, and I'm not going to open up anything else there, but I'm going to double click on door. We'll come to general, blur radius. Now I scaled the layer down, and there is a scale compensation checkbox ticked so that those lines don't get super fat when I scale it down. I'm going to leave that checked. That means my blur radius is going to have to be a little more significant, like, how about 6? And then I'll do the same thing at the ship. Double click that, blur radius 6, and choose OK. With that done now, I'm going to come back up to the top layer here, and actually I want to see a render and see how that looks. There, you get a nice little blending because it kind of matches the fuzziness of the imagery in the distance. Okay, rocket group. I want this to track the motion data from the Over Ice movie. So with the rocket group selected, I'll come up to Animation, Track Layer to Video. This is where naming the points makes a big deal. The primary tracking point is point 1 and point 2, and gosh, it renamed those things. So right now I'll say track 1. Secondary tracking point, I'm going to choose track 2. The reason is I want that second point to function as an angle controller and a scale controller. We're getting closer to this as the movie goes on. So I'll click OK, and we see all of a sudden things are not quite right. So let me undo that. I need to take this center origin point and put it right at the base of the rocket. With that done, let's go ahead and try that one more time. Track layer to video. I saw it shift way over to the side. That should still be okay. So track point 1 will be the first one. Track point 2 is the second one we clicked. Again, I'll enable angle and scale. There we go. And as we go ahead and click and drag here, we have a little anomaly we need to fix by eliminating a keyframe. But we see our rocket staying in the distance here and getting larger as we get closer. So there's how to work with tracking inside of Anime Studio Pro.